Rust actually does structures in a fairly cool way. It's a little bit different from the way that I've seen it done before. It separates the code from the data, which sounds like a familiar data oriented programming concept. But I think it's actually pretty cool and it leads to like a lot of like fairly interesting ways to write the code. So let's dive into it. So let's say that, we've got the typical use case whenever you're displaying structs. We've got a user struct that we want to create and we want to print out information about that user and input information about that user, etc. So we create the struct's actual like data structure up here by using the struct keyword and then the name of the struct followed by open curly braces and all of the information then a closed curly brace. Very basic stuff. In this user structure, we're going to have a name, which is of type string, an age, which is of type 32-bit integer, a boolean that shows whether or not the user is active or not, and an email, which is also a string. So let's ignore this code block right here for a second. We're going to talk about that here in a sec. But our instantiation is fairly easy. It's just like any other variable within Rust. We've got the let keyword, the name of the variable, then a colon, and the type. This is of type user. Now, the kind of odd piece of syntax here is you then have to like use the user struct name again, followed by open curly braces, basically similar to how you would if you were like creating the actual structure of the data up here. And then you actually instantiate all of your variables. So we've got Robert, age 27. They're an active user on whatever site we're creating, and their email is please subscribe at gmail.com. So this is how you instantiate the user struct itself. We can then print out the information here. Let's comment this out real quick. We won't talk about that. We can print out all of the information here using dot notation, just like you would, most any other programming language. So if we run cargo run right now, we will get username Robert, user age 27, user active true. Nothing super out of the ordinary here. Now, normally, if you were to have a language that uses structs similar to like object-oriented programming, you would then put the like actual functions down here within the same kind of syntax as you would actually declaring those objects. Instead, you have implements clauses. So this code block right here is for functions that implement functions on a user type. So here we've created a function called print_info. It takes a self variable, which is going to refer to the individual instance of the actual struct itself, and is going to print out that information right here. So it is a separate mode of printing out that information. So it also uses dot notation, self.name, self.age, self.active, self.email. If we want to call that, we can call that just on the user1 struct itself. So we've got an instantiated struct, and we can call a function on said instantiated struct. Easy peasy. Okay, I did that right. Cool, so that prints the information out. We can, there's also syntax to do cool things like copying data over from a user. So let's do user2 to type user, and we've got type user. So let's say we want our name to be string from Andrea, and we want all of the other information to be the same. We can just do something like this, and that is going to copy over all of the information from user1 except for the name. So then if we do user2 print info, right, it's going to throw an error here. So the value has been partially moved. So here's an interesting part about the syntax. I'll explain it actually here in a second. Let's just fix this error real quick like this. The move is going to happen afterwards. That's not going to work either. All right, let's just get rid of this right here. Let's not worry about it. That should work fine. Okay, so we are using the dot notation here, or the double dot, the double ellipses, I guess it might be called, to copy over all information from user1 except for the name. Now, the interesting part here is it moves all of this, or at least it moves the email from user1 into user2. So we could technically, I believe, I'm kind of testing this out as I go. We could technically do this. Email string from please subscribe to @gmail.com. And that should work fine because the rest of it is not a string, but it's not going to work. Let's see what the problem is. All right, we're not going to worry about that right now, but basically the double dot notation here is going to allow you to copy over all of the information except for the information that you specifically specify here. So let's get rid of this here, and we're not going to worry about the rest. Okay, so I personally like the way that Rust separates data out from code. I think that's interesting. I think that's an interesting data-oriented programming concept. It's one that I've read about, and it's one that I think probably has merit. It's going to take a little bit of getting used to kind of get used to the syntax itself, but I personally think that it's a really cool way to implement structs. Chapter 4 within the Rust book explains it super well. I really enjoyed it. Definitely recommend you check it out. I'm going to leave a link to it in the description. If you enjoy these videos on the Rust book, my dog just walked in, thought that I had the door closed. Apparently I did not. If you've been enjoying these Rust book read-alongs, let me know. If there's anything you want to see changed, also let me know. But otherwise, take it easy. Peace.